Earlier today, we began a conversation about narcissistic mothers, and now we're going to continue it. Let's get started. My name is Angie Atkinson, and on this channel, I offer free daily video coaching to help you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. If that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button and let's get rolling. So a narcissistic parent is someone who lives through their children, is possessive of their children, and or engages in different kinds of competition with their children. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, I did a video a while back about our narcissistic parents jealous of their children. And unfortunately, especially when it comes to mothers and daughters, that tends to be the case quite often. Typically, the narcissistic parent will see a child, and this does include adult children, as a threat. Often they coerce them to exist in the parent's shadow with not only unreasonable expectations, but also with the expectation that the child will not be themselves, that they will not differ from the parent's idea of what they are. The child is rarely loved just for being him or herself. A lot of studies have been done on this topic of narcissistic parenting and how it impacts the children. It's really important to determine the difference between parent tendencies, where sometimes a parent might have slight narcissistic tendencies, like, oh, we're going to church, so make sure you wear, what is appropriate for church or whatever, which isn't really narcissistic, but it does show that the parent cares about the way that the child looks in public, which I think is reasonable because people do judge us on our children and the way they look. But there's a difference from that kind of stuff to chronic parenting in a narcissistic fashion. A lot of parents want to show off their children. Of course, their children are awesome. A lot of parents want to have high expectations. Might have to be tough at times on certain things. Like if a child's behaving destructively, or like if you're me, grades are really important in my house. That's something that I'm really focus on your grades. If they're getting good grades, I'm not complaining. If they're getting bad grades, we have to talk about things. When a child behaves in a way that can hurt the child short-term or long-term, a parent sometimes has to get tough. But none of these traits by themselves constitute what I would consider pathological parental narcissism. I think the difference is a narcissistic parent has a real serious tendency to sort of deny the child's sense of self-importance, their sense of individuality. The way the parent sees it is that the child exists purely to serve the parent's selfish needs and their ideas and their goals for the child. A child is going to be more likely to rebel against this, but of course, if they're raised by a narcissistic parent, they often don't even know that there's an option to rebel. A narcissistic parent can produce either another narcissist, or in some cases, an empath, someone who feels everything because they spend their whole life. I used to say I had to know what was going to happen based on the face of the person. And so I needed to learn early how to read faces, which I think has contributed, or maybe was a result of, my being an empath. So we're going to talk about some signs that you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, okay? Number one, the parent lives through the child, uses the child for their benefit. Obviously, we all want our kids to succeed, but certain narcissistic parents will set expectations not for the benefit of the kid, but because they have their own selfish needs that they want fulfilled. Instead of raising a child who thinks and feels and has goals of their own, the parent will make the child become an extension of their personal wishes. For example, my daughter, she likes to wear different clothes than I like to wear. She likes to do her hair different. She's currently sporting a little green in her hair. That's all her. And I'm okay with it because it's her expressing her individuality, even though maybe I wouldn't walk around with green hair. She looks cute. She likes it. She's happy. That's all I care about. Feel me? I don't think hair is a big deal. Certain narcissistic parents would be threatened by her potential, by her promise, her success of, her future self, because she is different than me. But I encourage her to be herself because she's pretty amazing. You feel me? And if she was just going to be a carbon copy of me, then she would just be not the same kind of version she would just be a watered down version of something she isn't. And now she's who she is. And I love that. Move on to sign number two. Competition. Narcissistic mothers are very often competing with their kids. You can grow up and feel as though you have no real thoughts in your head, as though everything you think, say, and feel is not real, not quite as real as everyone else. Your narcissistic mother might have nitpicked you or made real serious judgments and criticisms of you, unfavorable comparisons. Maybe she invalidated your positive attitudes and emotions and rejected any accomplishments and success that you had. And of course, the common theme here is that you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. There's nothing you can do to be good enough because you're not perfect in the way that your narcissistic mother would want you to be. This lowers your confidence as the child, as the adult child even, of the narcissist, and it gives your narcissistic mother a really ridiculous boost of her own insecure self-esteem, self-worth. Number 3, grandiosity. They act superior to their children. They have a falsely inflated self-image. They are conceited. They think they're better than everybody else. They are not treated in the same way as other people, and they treat other people as though they are not human, as though they are not quite as important as them, as though they are objectified. They are objects. They are just as important as tools or objects or things. Clearly, with the impression that mother is better than child. Clearly, the sense of entitlement pretty much exclusively based on the mother's ego or lack thereof, her huge, overinflated, overblown ego. She feels as though she is superior to her children and to everyone else in her life, and she makes them feel like they're not as important, not as human. The next sign we're going to talk about is the superficial image of the narcissistic mother. Depending on the type of narcissist she is, she may be super dolled up and pretty all the time, or she might just be like real smart, the cerebral, the somatic, all of these things. These can be the mother. One of the things that happens in the case of the narcissistic mother pretty commonly is that she does have that fake self that she portrays to the world. It might be a perfect mother. It might be a big caregiver. She might even control you with her caregiving behaviors. They will publicly parade you like a possession. They'll be overly concerned with your physical appearance. They'll be overly concerned with your connections and all the things. They want you to help them show the world how awesome they are. Does that make sense? Superficial image. And it's always, of course, very different from the image at home. What they show us in public and what they act like behind closed doors, two very different things. So let's talk about number 5. The narcissistic mother is manipulative. She will guilt trip you. She will blame you for everything wrong in her life. She will shame you. She will compare you to other people negatively, most often to your siblings, in fact, sometimes, because that pits you and your siblings against each other and makes it so y'all can't gang up against her if that's the case. She will often reward and punish you in manipulative ways. So if you chose to go to a different college than she wanted you to go to, she might have cut off her support because you didn't go to her alma mater or the college she thought was good enough for her family. If you chose a different major, you chose to have a child when she didn't want you to have a child, whatever, she would personally take that as an insult and roll with it. There's the emotional coercion of it all. She'll tell you you're not a good child, you're not a good daughter, you're not a good son unless you do what she thinks you should do. You should measure up to her expectations. Again, the common thread is that love is a conditional reward. There's no unconditional love for the child of a narcissist, and that's not fair. They will withhold love. They will tell you, you will be alone if you don't do what I say. And you're afraid to do anything that you want to do because you're constantly under that threat of being alone. And that's our biggest fear. All of our biggest fear in the world is being alone. Ultimately, it comes down to, sure, we like to be alone for a few minutes, but nobody wants to be alone forever. Nobody wants to be without help in their lives. And so the narcissistic mother plays on this quite often. Number 6, another sign, they'll be real rigid, real touchy. You can't say certain things to the narcissistic mother without upsetting her and making her go ballistic and ruin your day. She will regulate you on, like, if you go to school, if you're a kid, you go to school and you're wearing a purple shirt and she thinks you should be wearing a green shirt, that's going to set her off for the whole day. You look at her the wrong way. It could be you're rude or she perceives that you're rude just because you say the truth. Another reason might be her desire to control you. Will respond negatively when you aren't doing exactly what she says or not letting her pull your strings. And it will be things that are small, like, you loaded the dishwasher wrong, or you set the groceries up on the checkout counter in the wrong order or something. There's also number 7, the lack of empathy. And this is the case with every narcissist. They don't feel what other people feel. They don't care about what other people feel. And this can become overwhelming and exhausting for the child, even as an adult of a narcissist, an adult child of a narcissist, because even as an adult child, only what narcissistic mothers feel or think counts. She could affect the way you name your children. She could affect the way you raise your children. She could affect the person you're married to. She could affect the person you choose to be with for the rest of your life. She could affect where you buy your home. Only what she thinks and feels matters. And when you get to the place where you are ready to be independent from her and change your life, you may make choices based on what she wants and not what you want. And so if you're dealing with a narcissistic mother, it's really, really important for you to take the time to recognize what it is that you really want, which may differ from what she really wants. She will invalidate you. She will make you feel like you don't matter. Number 8, there's the whole codependent issue and the whole dependent issue. Some narcissistic parents will expect their children to take care of them in ways that you wouldn't expect, and sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, sometimes financially. I've heard so many stories of narcissistic mothers stealing their child's social security number and ruining their credit before the child even turns 18, and then these people are stuck dealing with this for the rest of their lives after that. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your parents, but the narcissistic parent typically will manipulate the child into making unrealistic sacrifices. Instead of being the parent will often let the child behave in the way of the parent. That's not always the case, but that does happen. Some narcissistic parents will also push their adult children into codependent behaviors because while the parent will support or enable the child's underachievement, they do this by never pushing them to achieve anything, never teaching them to be responsible or mature. They may enable an addiction or bad health, and they may do this in order to keep the child closer to them. Number 9, jealousy. The parent is jealous, and we've talked about this before. The narcissistic mother will hope that the child will permanently live under their influence. They may become jealous of the signs of the child growing up and becoming someone else, mature and independent. They will perceive any sort of act on the child's part to be an individual as an attack on the parent. Did you ever meet somebody who got real upset because their child did something wrong and they took it real personally? Like, maybe in high school they snuck out one night, went out with their friends or something and got in trouble, and the parent would say to the child, "Why would you do this to me?" That is not about the parent when somebody does something like that. That is about the child. The appearance of a romantic partner in an adult child of a narcissist's life may also be viewed as a big threat. I know that was the case for a lot of people. The child's spouse or partner may be treated with rejection, criticism, over-criticism, and again, competition. Me or him, me or her, that kind of thing. And it's not like they usually say, you can't marry that person. Well, they do sometimes, but a lot of times they'll just put you in a very difficult spot where if you don't do what the narcissistic parent wants, they will punish you in some way. And often you'll find yourself, if you haven't healed yet, you'll find yourself putting your parent before your spouse, and that's not okay in most cases, unless of course your spouse is also a narcissist, and then you got a whole mess to deal with. But here's the deal: put yourself first and your own needs first, and then work through the rest of it. Mothers will sometimes say things like, "How dare you take my child from me?" to the partner. Who do they think they are? Well, look, do you expect your child to live under your thumb forever? If so, you may have a problem. Number 10, and this is my final one for today: neglect. A narcissistic parent may neglect their child in ways that you wouldn't expect. The narcissistic parent will not let the child have an opinion of their own. They will not sometimes offer the child the very basic resources they need. But on the flip side of that, the child may have everything in the world that they need, but they just don't have the ability to be heard by the parent. There's emotional neglect. And now it's time for the question of the day. Question of the day. The question of the day is, have you experienced a narcissistic mother? How did you get through it? And are you still in contact with her today? Share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments below, and let's talk about it. That's all I've got for you today. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. It's my mission to teach others what I know to be true. You really can create the life you want. Take care of your body, take care of your soul, nurture the real you, and introduce him or her to the world. Be comfortable in your own skin and in your place in this world. Take your spot, take it now, and the universe will take its cue from you. You feel me? If so, subscribe to my channel. Let's get it done together.